Well, Sean, where's Brad? Like,
I thought he was with you.
I didn't pick him up. I mean, he must still be at the London Stadium.
Maybe.
This is Red Card Radio. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever you're listening from. Thanks for tuning in. Red Card Radio is a weekly look at the Premier League from this week, two friends who support different clubs. This is the North London edition of Red Card Radio. My name is James. I support Arsenal. With me tonight, that's Sean. He's across from me. He supports Tottenham Hotspurs. You can see you got the scarf there up on the side with the, I think, what's that, Richmond Spurs badges? The Richmond Spurs?
Yeah, it's probably some cottage pie on there from years of going to the pub. Yep.
Yeah, I hear shout outs are in order for the Richmond Spurs supporters group.
They're awesome.
They're probably not as good as the Richmond Arsenal supporters. I'm just saying, but you know.
Here in Richmond, we allow supporters of all shirt colors. So, shout out to those. Let me make sure they are the Richmond Gooners over there.
Yeah, there we go. What's up, Richmond Gooners? I'm not in Richmond, but what's up?
Yeah. You said Brad was at the London Stadium. Did you guys get press passes? I didn't. That wasn't in my box. That wasn't in my mailbox.
Did you miss that? Did you?
We spent passes now?
We spent so much money on airfare and lodging and just.
All right, I guess I missed that one. Maybe the next one.
All right, if you are new here, if you're just stumbling across this, hit that subscribe button, ring the sub notification bell, do all those things that internet people ask you. If you're on the podcast site, 5-star, rate, review, comment, whatever you can do. Join our Discord. It's in the comments below. We're still doing our sheets of integrity data collection at this point, so fill out your sheets. That'll be in the description of this video or podcast, wherever you're getting it. So definitely do all those things. And without further ado, let's review match week 2. Let's take a look at everything. First and foremost, we always like to do the comments. Will had this comment. He said, "No crops will be reaped, no clogs will be fixed the day Serie A returns to the pitch." I think that's a little poem he wrote for you, Sean.
Is he setting me up?
He's just farmers.
Is he setting me up?
Farmers and plumbers, man.
Farmers and shoemaker cobblers, huh?
No. I think clogs isn't like pipe clogs, like clogs in the pipe.
Yes.
Yes. What are they called? No septic tanks are being drained.
No. No. Yes, they will all be at the stadiums.
I would also like to point out that my tiebreaker prediction for the sheets of integrity, because the tiebreaker is who wins Serie A. Juve picked up a win and got 3 goals, so I'm looking pretty nice. I'm just saying.
It's young.
It's only 37 more weeks. All right, Jimmy hits us with, he doesn't think it was mentioned, but the handball that wasn't allowed as a penalty in the Chelsea-Liverpool game, he does think is the correct decision. It's awkward, but I think it's a fairly natural position and likely his body likely would hit his body if his arm wasn't there. Context, he's talking about in the first match week, the Liverpool player crosses the ball and it hits I don't know if it's Nicholas Jackson or it's one of the Chelsea players, hits his hand, but his hand is like right in front of his chest. And so they didn't call it a penalty on the pitch. Vieira had a look at it, but they never sent the referee over to the box to take a look. I think it's universally agreed that it wasn't a penalty. So Jimmy has another thought that we will get into a little bit later in this podcast. We'll circle back to you, Jimmy. Let's jump into these games. So, like I told you guys last week, we got the scores scrolling across the bottom, so we're not going to run through all those for you. But we want to kick off our conversation in North London at the new White Hart Lane. I don't know what its real title is. Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, whatever. We at Red Card Radio officially agree that it's the new White Hart Lane. But Sean, 2-0. Your boys did it. Beat Baldy.
I mean, I was fighting for my life last week, telling everyone from the mountaintops that this is the best midfield since. I mean, you name the best ones. Vieira Piero. This is This is Gig Scholes. This is De Bruyne, Rodri. This is Basuma and Madison, baby. Come on.
This is
How clean can you be in the midfield out of Basuma? Moving like Prom Dembele. Madison's out here assisting everything, controlling the game. I mean, what more do you want from this?
I mean, I just think this is quite the humorous take from you that you are already elevating them to all-time Premier League great
Duos.
midfielders. It was a clean win for you guys. I mean, you guys dominated United.
Yeah, and that's what I was interested to see after the first game because I felt like we pretty well dominated week one as well. You know, we didn't get the result, but Brentford they're a ruthless attack, or relentless was the word I was looking for. Relentless attack.
Both.
They just don't stop. They don't stop going forward.
Yeah,
and that's tough to deal with for 90 minutes, and that's something we did to United that proved to be tough to deal with for them. They had a couple chances that did have me on the edge of my seat. There was one flick over the top, I think, from Bruno to Rashford coming in at the far post that was really close to meeting Rashford's foot or head, or I don't remember the specifics, but he's clinical enough to score either if it gets to him, but it just happened to not.
Well, I mean, United had a couple chances. They put the ball in the back of the net, one for offside, I believe, and then they had the one that Bruno had a free header. It was just kind of chipped across, an early cross, and Bruno had a free header, and he just absolutely fluffs it, which is you expect more. I mean, okay, United fans expect more from Bruno. Maybe the casual Premier League fan expects more from Bruno, but I don't expect more from Bruno. Personally, I don't rate Bruno, so that's a me thing.
Well, also, I mean, to be fair, how much is he heading the ball in the box? He's not normally in that position, so.
True, but he had enough time to take it down, collect it,
himself.
and shoot it with his foot if he wanted to. He had so much time. He was like longingly looking to the linesman to say, "Am I offside?" But he was onside for days. So,
and then Vicario looked spectacular as well. So he had the first big mistake, and then he settled into the game against Brentford. A couple unlucky breaks. And one was a penalty, so you're not going to hold one goal against him. But he had the bad mistake early. I think that was nerves. I said that last week. I think it was nerves. Then he settled into the game. This week he looked sharp all game. The distribution was good. Looked comfortable on the ball. We were definitely playing off of the back line a couple times.
Yeah,
the end line.
He looks like he has great potential, great upside potential. I know that was a concern of mine for Spurs coming into the season, was that I thought that the goalie situation was maybe a bit tenuous. Perhaps it was maybe unresolved is the best way to look at it, because you guys had Hugo for so long, and then Hugo is actually still with the team, but he wants to leave, which is kind of a strange situation. Surprising to me, there's not a club in France that's willing to pay like €5 million for him, and like Tottenham can't facilitate that for some reason. But then, of course, we're reminded that we're dealing with Daniel Levy, and Daniel Levy probably wants absurd money for him. But he's settled very well into that Spurs number one position, and he's young. He's got passing well. He's a great shot stopper. It seems like he's got good reactions, so he could fill those shoes for a while, assuming he stays fit and he continues to improve.
Unprovoked this summer, Buffon has named him as the next one. Says Vicario is that talented. Whether he'll be that good, whether he'll be the Italian one, that's on him. But he is that talented.
Yeah, and I mean, Gigi would know.
Yeah, and it's not like he's doing that because he loves Tottenham, because we all know Juve like to troll Tottenham. So that is not it's not a little nod to us.
In Gigi's defense, that was Chiellini who made the statement.
I'm sure Buffon had his own little teehees in the locker room over it too.
What's funny is that Giorgio Chiellini made that comment that is the meme now, but Conte kept repeating it last year. He said, "This is the history of Tottenham," and it's just like, oh, bro, you're the manager. Anyway, quick word for Manchester United though. There seems to be a significant midfield imbalance in this team. It's unfortunate that Brad's not here, because I think most of this revolves around Mason Mount. And the role that he's been playing in this Manchester United midfield is that he's been playing a bit deeper than, of course, he did at Chelsea. In Chelsea, he was very attacking, very forward. He's like sitting right behind the forwards. And this, he's more of like Ten Hag's trying to use him more as like a deep lying playmaker, kind of sitting near Casemiro, but it's not his tendency, and so he tends to drift forward. And then Casemiro is isolated, which at his age in this league, he doesn't have the speed of a Declan Rice, of a Caicedo, of an Enzo, of a Basuma to be able to track back as needed to break up play. I mean, he's an intelligent football. He's a great passer, but he's on an island. So I think this is an issue for United.
Well, we exploited that. We exploited that pretty well. I thought there was a number of times that Casemiro was left on that island, started to float out as well to not be on an island, try to get closer to Mount, closer to Bruno, just help in general. And he would float out and he would try to pick up Basuma or Madison, and they would easily make the turn and beat it. And now he's definitely on an island. Now he's in a position where he needs to professional foul. And he came in late a couple times, and that's his game. I wasn't, you just kind of shrug your shoulders. Casemiro's just a rough guy. He's coming in late. He's coming in hard. You just play for it. But there was a handful of times where Casemiro was out and then out of the play.
Yeah.
So
that happens. We will circle back to this Spurs United game at the end of our conversation. So if you feel like we've missed something, if we've left something out, don't worry, we haven't. We're saving it for a special segment. Moving our attention to East London, where West Ham played. West Ham hosted Chelsea this weekend. This was the weekend where we were primed and prepared to get to see the 226 million pound midfield of Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, and I can't remember Lavia's first name right now.
Romeo. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Long story short, Lavia wasn't even included on the bench. Caicedo started on the bench, and Enzo was in there with Conor Gallagher. So West Ham won that game 3-1. West Ham went down to 10 men in the 67th minute. Okay. The game was tied. Well, no, they were losing at that point. Chelsea was losing. It was 2-1. They go down to 10 men, and then Chelsea give up a penalty in the 94th minute. Moises Caicedo, or whenever it was late in the game. Moises Caicedo, stretching to stop a ball, fouls someone in the box, and Paqueta scores it. It's unfortunate that Brad's not here to tell me why I shouldn't be concerned about Chelsea. And if I'm being honest, I don't think I'm concerned about Chelsea long term. I know you you've been having a fun time over the last 12 months talking about Chelsea implosions. I don't know how much of that is tongue in cheek and how much of that is actually believed.
Well, I mean, it's the history of Chelsea. Like if we're talking about the history of Tottenham, the history of Chelsea is extremely short-lived success followed by implosion. And so normally once they just won the Champions League a couple of years ago, normally after that happens, there's about a half season where they're kind of just floating along fourth, fifth. Then the manager does something stupid, Tuchel, or Lampard. And then, Tuchel won. Yeah, Tuchel. And then you start getting into this situation where you start to have meltdown year. There it was. And then then they had their 14th. Now, the Chelsea's credit, and I've said this, normally the next year after the implosion, they make it back out and they're right back where they quote unquote should be. So we'll see if that happens this year, but it's not, that's not a good result.
No, and it's not a confidence building result, right? Like, because we talk about like early in the season, I think it doesn't really matter how you play. It's about getting points on the board and getting 3 points at all costs. And like you kind of work into your fitness, you expect, 5th, 6th, 7th match day, things are kind of going well for you. Hopefully. This is, I'm not willing to write Chelsea off because I really do think that they have improved dramatically over the summer with their signings. And I can't, I think it's unconscionable for a club to spend near £1 billion in 12 months. I think that's a little ridiculous. And there's it, but if it's within the rules, it's within the rules, and I'm not going to complain about it. But it seems weird,
and it's unsustainable. That's
yes,
the big part.
Right.
You can't keep doing this.
What happens if in 6 months they're meandering around seventh or eighth, and they're like, "Oh, we need a center forward," and they go spend 150 million euros or 150 million pounds on Osimhen or something like that. Like that's just getting ridiculous at this point. And yes, Chelsea fans will listen to an Arsenal and a Tottenham fan complaining about Chelsea spending and be like, "Oh, you're just bitter. Oh, you just wish your owners would spend the money." And sure, that's all a fair point. It just seems unsustainable. It seems it's that to me is the history of Chelsea. Is the Russian oligarch buys you in 2000, and then you just completely implode the way that transfers work. And then 25 years later, you're still doing it. So Chelsea are low on my list, but it's a confidence thing right at this point. They have Luton Town coming up, and that's an eminently winnable fixture. But if they don't get all 3 points against Luton Town at home,
for their first ever points,
yeah, things are feeling a little strange at Chelsea. Obviously, you have to give Pochettino this entire season. You have to give Pochettino all of next season before you can actually. Yeah, you have to give him like at least 18 months before you can actively judge him. But they didn't give Graham Potter that. They gave Graham Potter like 5 months, and they sacked him.
Yep.
So, I mean,
the confidence could go either way too. So
yeah.
you struggle against Luton and you get a 2-2 draw. You're not feeling great.
No.
And I'm sure at this point they'll take points, but not to Luton.
The thing is, like, if they smash Luton Town 5-0, great. Things are feeling fine. If they struggle to get a victory, but they still win, it feels iffy. If it's a draw, it feels bad. Like, the only way out of this for Chelsea is you just smash Luton Town, and it feels good. But if you don't, if it's a difficult game, if you don't get all 3 points in some situation, you're going to start, I think, seeing confidence become an issue for them. Maybe we're overreacting. I mean, United had torrid start to last season, and they finished third. So who knows?
I'll help Pooch. I've got a direct line from our history together. I've got a direct line with Pochettino.
Perfect.
I'm going to call him and give him the game plan. Here it is. It's Luton Town's first time up here. Don't be dumb. Put the most physically athletic people you have on the field because they are going to be infinitely more athletic than anything Luton Town has. Just put Mudryk, put Jackson. Mudryk is a great one. No one on Luton Town can even sniff his speed.
True, but you have a lot of concerns about Mudryk and his beyond his footballing abilities.
I did see an interesting question of who would be better or worse. It doesn't matter. The framework of the question, but it was Mudryk and Antony. And I thought that was a really good question. Where I would, which would be better, or if it's a worse signing, I'm picking Antony, because when I watch Antony, I just watched him. His little foot jingle does nothing. He's not going anywhere. It's just for show. There is no other redeeming quality about his game that I can find. He's not a clinical finisher. He's not overly fast. He's not that great through traffic because he's so small. I don't think there's anything redeemable, whereas Mudryk, at least there's the speed. You can't teach that speed. At least there's that.
On top of that, it almost seems like Antony has a bit of an arrogance about him because he's Brazilian, because he's doing all these showy moves. Like
I don't mind that, but finish the play. You can't do all that and then have a turnover.
I don't know. He seems arrogant. Like the way he holds himself on the pitch, like his body language screams arrogance to me. Whereas Mudryk, it screams, I'm an unfinished product. I need to keep working on it. And he's said as much. Antony has said as much. Mudryk has said as much. He seems significantly more humble than Antony. I don't know. That's my quick read on it.
I don't know. Well, that's just Brazil. I don't read too much into that part other than, well, you can't do that after you don't finish the play. Like, at least
I think that's my point.
I like Richarlison's arrogance. I like it.
I don't.
But you could also tell when he doesn't finish something, he's down on himself. You could tell it's like there's that like head hung, but then he like picks it up and jogs down the field. You know,
Richarlison's a super emotional player.
very
Super
emotional.
emotional. I don't know if that's good for him. Looking quickly at this Palace Arsenal result, obviously I'm very pleased that Arsenal gets 3 points. We should have gotten 3 points. It should have been cleaner. But you go down, we dominate the game until we go down to 10 men, and then Crystal Palace dominate the game for 10 men. Shout out to Mikel Arteta and the low block of White, Saliba, Gabriel, Kivior, Zinchenko with Jorginho, Partey, and Declan Rice sitting in front with Kai Havertz as your forward. You want to talk about a low block? You want to talk about parking the bus? Like, that is an absurd lineup.
Use all 5 subs on defenders.
It was wild. And what's kind of humorous about that is after we made the Zinchenko and Kivior subs, we actually had like a spell of like 2 or 3 minutes where we were just passing the ball around the park with 10 men and Palace couldn't get anywhere near us. So it was pretty funny that even our defenders are highly technical and can pass the ball. And it was pretty funny to watch. And I was just like, yo, take the ball to the corner. What are you doing? Like, go get fouled in the corner for 5 minutes. And they didn't. But yeah, I can't really have too much complaints about the red card on Tomiyasu. The first yellow card he gets is for time wasting. It's a little unfair to him because Kai Havertz, this is a throw-in, and someone picks up the ball and hands it to Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz holds it for like 20 seconds and then hands it to Tomiyasu, and Tomiyasu holds it for like 8 seconds and gets a yellow card. So it's obviously time wasting. Arsenal were obviously time wasting as a team, and it just sucks that Tomiyasu was the last person. But then this second yellow card for barely touching the player, barely touching Ayew as he spins him. Ayew clearly goes down. It's just like the ref needs to have a little bit more. I don't know. I don't even know if it's a foul. Personally, I'm not even sure it's a foul. I think most people would disagree and say it's a foul.
It's awareness of the player. It's awareness of, all right, I really needed to call that yellow on Havertz, not Tomiyasu. And he got it. I should probably be more lenient with this call.
I don't even know about that. My bigger issue is Ayew is intent. Like Ayew intent. It was clear of Tomiyasu. The touch that Tomiyasu had on Ayew had no impact on his ability to keep running, and Ayew decided to go down because he felt the touch, and that's what they're supposed to do. And that's the bigger issue, is that like he didn't need to go down. He chose to go down. Like, we shouldn't be rewarding that. Whatever. That's my opinion. I think most people disagree. Joel's going to get in the comments and be like, James, that's a clear card. He tugged his shirt. Any player's going to go down if you tug your shirt. Whatever. I get that, but it was soft. Other red cards. Alexis McAllister had a red card against Bournemouth. Straight red card, too.
Yeah, straight.
Dangerous play, high boot, studs to the shin. If that's all I said, most listeners who didn't see it would be like, oh yeah, that's a clear red card. It was a bad call. The Premier League has since rescinded that red card, and so McAllister will be available for Liverpool selection next week. But it kind of brings us to an interesting conversation because we're 2 match weeks in. We've had 2 weeks of football, and once again, it's time to talk about VAR.
VRNK card radio.
Yeah, and it's not something we like to talk about, but there was a situation, and this is our circle back, where in the Tottenham game, where Manchester United should probably have been awarded a penalty. There was a ball. I don't know if it's a shot or if it's a pass, but it was a shot. Whatever. A United player kicks the ball, and Romero goes to block it, and his hand is kind of up in the air. If you're watching this, it's by his side and he's lunging and it hits his hand, and his hand is by his head or by his shoulder, and you're like, that's a penalty.
I think it hits his forearm somewhere around here, but irregardless, it's still a penalty.
Yeah. You talk to anyone who watched that game, who has seen the replay,
watching live in a Tottenham bar, I said my first reaction was, oh, I hope that's not in the box. And then the first replay, I was like, oh, that's a penalty.
Yeah, right?
That was the first, seeing it live and first replay, I was like, that's it. I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, that's a penalty 20 out of 20 times.
And so, yeah, So United have a right to feel aggrieved in that situation. They probably should have had a penalty, and probably would have put Romero on a yellow card, which then he has to deal with for the rest of the game. Might have changed the complexion of the game. Might have not, because Spurs still really controlled that game.
The official adjudication of why it was not was because he was lunging for the ball. It made this arm, the trailing arm, a natural position.
I think most people just disagree with that interpretation.
I do too.
Obviously, you had the Liverpool red card that was overturned, the McAllister red card that was overturned, and then you had the Arsenal double yellow red card. But then I think in that game as well, Crystal Palace had a couple of shouts for penalties that they wanted that they didn't get. I honestly, and this is probably Arsenal bias, I think that VAR got all of those calls correct, like in the Crystal Palace Arsenal game. Sans the Tomiyasu yellow card, but VAR can't intervene there. I think that they got those right in terms of. I don't think that the Crystal Palace penalties were penalties. Now there was a conversation about whether or not Thomas Partey was blocking off when Nketiah was put through on the quick free kick that led to Arsenal's penalty. That's an interpretation thing. Obviously, I don't know if you've seen it, Sean. As an Arsenal fan, I've seen significantly more egregious blocking offs that are not called as fouls on the attacking team. So it would have, I think, felt harsh had that been called back. I could understand it, I guess, but it would have felt harsh. You'll have to check the replay and check the tape and decide for yourself. But it's just kind of sad that we're in a state where we feel like we have to talk about VAR again. It's just like, can they get their act together? Jimmy had a funny comment. He said his comment was spoilers for next week's podcast, which is this week's podcast. But it was so bad. Howard Webb told officials they needed to just find a way to not give something to United in a game they wouldn't have won anyway, just to hide the bias. Officials were pretty bold to have that kind of foresight so early in the game, which just kind of like exemplifies. Everyone feels this way. Everyone feels that there is a significant issue with refereeing in England. And obviously Jimmy is worried about the Howard Webb Manchester United bias, because when Howard Webb was an official in the Premier League, it seemed like he had a strong favoritism towards Manchester United. But
Baldies love Baldies.
Hopefully next week we will not have this issue, and hopefully we can just talk about the football. Quick update on we kind of reported on this about 18 months ago or so, whenever it first came out, but the Mason Greenwood situation at Manchester United, where he was accused of some detestable things. I don't know if the YouTube censor will have an issue if we say certain words, but it was some bad acts that one man can do to a woman, or I guess they can do it to a man too, but predominantly happens between men and women in domestic relationships, when there is he did some bad stuff. You can check it out. But he essentially was cleared of those charges in February of this year, and apparently Manchester United has been conducting a thorough investigation, as thorough as a football club could do, and they have determined that while the recording and the pictures that came out that were made public of the situation did not tell the full story about what happened in those situations, they're confident that Mason Greenwood was not guilty of those actions, that he can no longer continue his career at Manchester United, and so Mason Greenwood is no longer employed at Manchester United. They mutually agreed to terminate his contract, and so Mason Greenwood is now looking for greener pastures elsewhere. It seems unlikely to me that he'll be picked up by an English team. There was some rumblings that he might end up in the Saudi league, but those have been quashed today, as apparently the Saudi Arabians want to distance themselves with Mason Greenwood for a potential negative PR that could come. So,
yeah, I think he'll take some time off of football. It's just no one's touching him with a 10-foot pole right now in England, or anytime soon, or probably ever. So,
yeah, it seems unlikely
But that's all we'll say.
Yeah. But we felt obligated to report on this news story because we reported on it when it was happening. So that's all we got for you guys. We will come back later this week. We got a preview of match week 3 coming up. We got 10 full games because Luton Town don't have to be at home. So that means they don't have to try and use Kenilworth Road. And so, yeah, there we go. Fill out the sheets of integrity, drop a comment on the video, share it with a friend, all those things. Hit us up on Twitter. That guy is at whiteheart_Sean. I'm at James Tiffany. The absent one is at KS Brad G. Send all of your funny Chelsea memes to him. Collectively, we're at redcard_radio. Check us out on Instagram. Brad does stuff there. But that's it. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later this week.